Nom Nom delivers fresh food with whole ingredients backed by veterinarian science. Science tells us that a dog's health starts in the bowl, so improving their diet is one of the best ways to help them live a long and happy life. Nom Nom's food is full of proteins your dog loves and the vitamins and nutrients they need to thrive. All you have to do is order, pour, and serve. Ready to make the switch to fresh? Order Nom Nom today. Go to https://trynom.com/curveball and get 50% off your first order plus free shipping. That's https://trynom.com/curveball. Plus, Nom Nom comes with a money-back guarantee. If your dog's tail isn't wagging within 30 days, Nom Nom will refund your first order. No fillers, no nonsense, just Nom Nom. Welcome to the Living the Dream podcast with Curveball. If you believe, you can achieve. Welcome to the Living the Dream with Curveball podcast, a show where I interview guests that teach, motivate, and inspire. Today, I am joined by Dr. Ravi Iyer. Dr. Iyer is the president and founding physician of the Iyer Clinic. He is from Mumbai, India, but he is now in Virginia. He's done lots of research. He is a scientist, not only a physician, but he's an author, inventor, and an entrepreneur with an extensive bio. So we're going to let him tell his story and be talking about his research and everything that he's up to. So Dr. Iyer, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be on the show, Chris.
Why don't you start off by telling everybody a little bit about yourself?
Hi, I'm Ravi Iyer. I practice in Northern Virginia in Fairfax County. The Iyer Clinic was started by me back in 1998. And I've been in the US since 1988, and I've been a physician since 1983. So it's almost 40 years. I started the clinic originally in Reston, and then we moved to Herndon, and now we have 3 offices distributed in Sterling and in Stone Springs and Herndon. And we pretty much see a wide variety of people, but the real skill set that I bring in the clinic is how we build teams and how we drive them to be self-initiative towards excellence at all times. So it's not like somebody is standing with their shoulder. They are motivated to manifest excellence as a part of their being. And that's something that I'm very good at. And my team has won the Top Doctor Award for the last 10 years every year since 2012, 11 years now. So that's who I am.
Well, tell the listeners a bit more about the Iyer Clinic. What made you want to start it, and what do you guys do?
The Iyer Clinic is an internal medicine practice, general internal medicine practice. I started it back in 1998 with the idea. At that time, all the doctors were coming out of residency and going straight into group practice, and I decided to go into solo. I had an idea of practicing medicine that was different than the assembly line, run-of-the-mill kind of practice that everyone was getting into. I wanted to be able to give people a space where they could be empowered to experience health. And the first few years was not easy because it was not something that It was a different model, and it was not something that was very well paid. People, and I insisted on not going down the concierge medicine route. So I wanted to give high quality medicine to everyone, regardless of their ability to pay. So obviously, there was a few years of lean times, but I stuck with it, and we got to where we are. We moved from a small rented office in Sterling to 3 years later, we were able to buy an office in Sterling, and then from there we moved and bought a second office in London. And then in 2017, we bought a third office in Stone Springs. And at each location, we were able to grow, serve patients, were able to provide them with care that was exceptional. And I say that with confidence because during the pandemic, we were the only practice that remained open while every practice shut their doors. We actually opened even wider and opened our doors to all patients, sick or well, without fear. And that was something that was very unique.
Okay, well, you've also done a lot of research as because you're a scientist. So tell the listeners about all the research that you've done and the results of it and why you decided to do it.
Well, when I got my physician's degree in India, I was passionate uh, about research, and I decided to take a break from clinical medicine. And in 1985, I moved to the All India Institute in New Delhi to get a doctoral degree in molecular biology and immunology and biochemistry. And after I got that degree, I got recruited by Harvard as a research fellow. So I came over. That's what brought me to the U.S. in 1988. I joined Harvard Medical School and Massachusetts General Cancer Center to do research in the biology of how the body fights infections. And I was a research fellow in medicine with a dual appointment. I was research fellow at the Mass General Hospital, and I was also a research fellow at the Harvard Medical School. And I started initially in 1988, and then in 1991, Harvard wanted me to hang around as an assistant professor. And so they sponsored me for my green card, and I got my green card in 1993. And on that year, I also got a Young Investigator Award for my clinical research in the genetics of infection and how the body fought infection. And so I came to receive that award at the conference in Washington, D.C. And while I was at that conference, there was a little wine and cheese thing after the conference. So we were all sitting there, uh, and all the people, I was not the only person who was getting awards. There were quite a few awardees. So all the awardees were hanging around, you know, eating the good food and mingling. When the department chair of internal medicine at George Washington struck up a conversation with me, and it turned out that about 20 years earlier, he had made a postulate that uh, he could not prove because the technology did not exist, but he postulated that the genetic mechanisms for infection was actually immunity in the body actually worked in a particular way, but he couldn't prove it because the tools were not there. And 20 years later, I came along, and because at that time, 20 years later, there were better tools, better technology. I independently took the same problem and I proved it. So he obviously was very vindicated. He was excited about it, and was talking to me with great joy. And then at the end of that conversation, asked me what I was planning to do. So I said, well, tomorrow I'm planning to fly back to Boston and continue my work. And he said, uh, are you always going to do research? I said, no, I'll do research and maybe I'll also start seeing patients at some point. And he said, well, in this country, to see patients, you've got to do a residency. Uh, have you thought of doing a residency? And I said, no, not yet. He says, well, why don't you come over and see our hospital? So So I said, okay, I'll postpone my flight back to Boston. Went back to the hotel. The next morning, I was at George Washington University Medical Center in Foggy Bottom, DC, and he took me around the department. And then he said, "What do you think?" I said, "It's great. It's a great place to do a residency." He says, "Would you like to be a resident here? I can offer you the residency." I said, well, do you mind if I go back to Boston and take permission from my boss because he's pushed me forward as the next assistant professor in the department, and I can't just dump him and come. Uh, I gotta I gotta ask him what he thinks about it. He said, sure, go ahead. So I came over to Boston and asked my boss, and I said, hey, I got this offer. What do you think? He said, go, take it. He says, well, I said, well, his name was Alan. I said, Alan, you've gone up to the dean and you have made promises that I was going to be the next assistant professor, and won't you look bad? I mean, like it'll. He says, Ravi, this is Harvard. People come and go all the time. Go do your residency. At the end of it, if you want to come back, just give me a call. And that's how it happened. I went from research back into clinical medicine, did my residency. At the end of the residency, I gave Alan a call, and he said, "You know what? At that time, the Gulf War, the first Bush, the Iraq War was going, the one in Kuwait, and the NIH research funds were drying up because of the war. And so Alan said that, Ravi, it's a really bad time to come back into bench research, stay in clinical medicine. So I stayed in clinical medicine and I haven't looked back after that.
Okay, well, you also started a nutrition and wellness company, Active Power. So tell the listeners why you decided to start that and all about the company.
Well, I grew up in India and I grew up in a family that was very much into herbal medicine. So in India, out here, people go to classes to learn yoga. They go and take courses about learning herbal medicine. In India, you don't need to do all that. You just need to live, and it's a way of life. If anyone has seen that movie Karate Kid with that Ralph Macchio and Mr. Miyagi, you see, he takes them to Okinawa, and there everyone knows karate. Nobody goes to a dojo. Karate is a way of life. And that's how it is in India. You grow up in India, you learn herbal medicine. You don't need to go to a special course for that. Every Sunday, my dad used to take me shopping, and it's called the Sunday market. It's basically a farmer's market, and it is spread out over 5 acres of a field, a huge field, 5 acres big. And all the farmers would spread their wares. Um, and it was a combination fruits and vegetable market. And on the other side is a wet market where meat was butchered or live goats and chicken and fish were being sold. And so we would go, my father would take me on this tour of the Sunday market, and he would take me down every aisle of the grocery store, and he would point out various vegetables and various plants and herbs that had medicinal value. He says, yeah, this is good for stomach pain. This is good for arthritis. That's good for having good vision or good digestion, and so on and so forth. So, I just picked up a lot of that knowledge by myself. In 2007, my mother was visiting me, and she was complaining that she couldn't sleep because her arthritis in her knees were affecting her. So and she could not tolerate ibuprofen or naproxen, Aleve. All of those medicines tore her stomach up. So she would not take any of those medicines, and she was just suffering and not able to sleep all night. So I decided to concoct a balm in the kitchen. So I took some olive oil and some camphor and some black pepper, some chili pepper, and ground it all up and put it into a jar with the oil. And for 2 weeks, every time I crossed the kitchen, I would pick up the jar and shake it and then leave it over there, let it stand. Every time I would go, every day I would shake it about 4 or 5 times every day. And after 2 weeks, I took the oil from the top of the jar and rubbed it on my mom's knee, and her arthritis pain was relieved. So the Iyer balm got created out of that. And that balm, over the next few years, because I have a chemistry background and I know how to do that, I set up a small lab in my basement, like Breaking Bad, and started refining the methodology for making this Iyer balm. And it became a big hit in the clinic. All the patients would come, and everyone with arthritis or muscle strain or muscle pain would take it. And people kept telling me, you should patent this, you should patent this. So I filed a patent and I got a patent on it. And then I submitted to the FDA, and the FDA approved it. So the Iyer bomb became a success, and that's how the. So a couple of my accountant and one other patient of mine who was business savvy, and so the three of us got together and formed this company. And one thing led to another, and we started off with originally the Ayurab. We changed the name to Ayurab, and then subsequently, uh, a friend of mine who had a dog had an injury, and he was recovering from it. He asked me if I could design a supplement for the dog. So I used my chemistry knowledge and looked up all the various herbs and compounded a powder that he could sprinkle on the food. And in this manner, Atlas was born. And that powder became a big success, and everyone, it's the best supplement on the market. It outperforms everything else that is on the market. And so one thing led to another. So first the Ayurab, then the Ayurab was modified to make a version for dogs that is Actorub, and then we made Atlas for dogs, and then the FDA approved that, and then we made a version of Atlas for humans called Zeus, and that became so popular in patients with arthritis during COVID. Uh, I was giving it to my patients who are recovering from COVID because I noticed that the patients, and that was an interesting thing. I had several patients who were having arthritis taking Zeus for their arthritis, and those patients got COVID. So, the 2 weeks, after 2 weeks, you get out of COVID, but all the patients who were on Zeus, when they got out of COVID, they did not have any lingering weakness and fatigue that was so prevalent in everybody else. So every other patient would would get sick with COVID, and then they would get better, but then they would just drag on for about 6 weeks, 8 weeks, sometimes 6 months, um, before they would actually feel as good as they did before they got COVID. But all the patients who were actually taking Zeus for their arthritis, they bounced right back. They still took 2 weeks to clear the virus, but after those 2 weeks, they were back in action, just like as if they were before. So that was a big revelation. So I started giving it to all the patients who got COVID, and all of my patients in my practice got better. I mean, they still had to deal with COVID, but once they got past the virus, they weren't dragging around like zombies for 6 months. They could get back to their life just like before. So all of that were big breakthroughs for the company, and we still we're still a very small company, but and we would like to keep that boutique kind of flavor where we but it is there online. All our products are online. You can get it. It's activepower.com. If you, the only thing I have to say is you have to be careful about the spelling. The active is spelled without an E. So it is activepower.com. So there is no E after the V. So it's like active, like the way Europeans or would pronounce active, activepower.com. And so that's the story of the nutrition company. So right now we do the Iyer clinic, and my staff uh, also, help in the active power side, and the products work very well.
Okay, so talk about what you see as the biggest challenge for humanity today.
The biggest challenge of humanity, and this is not just in the US, it's all over the world, is this idea of us versus them. Uh, and this us, I call this the us versus them mentality. And this us versus them mentality comes out of something that I call the poverty mindset. Uh, the poverty mindset is that people think of the things that they want in their life as if there's a perpetual shortage of the things that they want in their life. They live and behave as if they don't have enough of the things that they want. So it's always, I don't have enough money, not enough money, not enough time, not enough health, not enough wealth, not enough success, not enough recognition, not enough love, not enough friends. It's always not enough, not enough, not enough. And this, I call this the not enough life. The not enough life is a poverty that can never be filled. And you don't have to be poor to be caught in this not enough life. Some very rich people, some very successful rich people are stuck in this not enough mentality. And there is this big idea out there that, to be competitive, you have to have this hunger and this idea that you have to drive and grab the things that you don't have in your life. But in actuality, that is counterproductive, because as long as you are living life from a shortage or a not enough mentality, the maximum that you can do is what you can steal or rob or snatch or win from somebody else. So if you have to win, somebody else has to lose. And guess what? Those people are also doing the same thing. So no matter how much you win, you never win 100%. So you'll always have some losses. So eventually everyone's wins and losses averages out into mediocrity. And this is where everyone lives life as if it is us versus them. And it comes right out of that not enough mentality. And the key of the not enough mentality is the idea that all the things that are important to us are physical objects in time and space. So people look at the resources that they want in their life as if they are physical objects that occupy bounded manifestations in time and space. And because they are physical objects, they got to grab it. Because if they don't grab it, it's going to disappear. It's going to be grabbed by somebody else, or it is going to decay, or it is going to fall apart, or get lost, or something happens. Whatever it is going to happen, it's not going to be there again. So, because of this idea that the resources are physical objects, everyone lives life in this hustle mentality all the time, running, like hamsters on a treadmill, on the not enough treadmill of life. But if you look at successful people, really powerful people, they don't live their life as if there is a shortage. They live their life as if there is abundance of opportunity, plenty, whatever. And it's not just for them. They live their life as if there is always a surplus, not only for them, but also for the people around them. And the reason for that is they don't look at the things that they want in their life as objects. They look at their life as relationships. They really look at what they look at the relationships that they have with the stuff in their life, with the people in their life. And they're not so much concerned about whether they have a car, but whether they are able to have the means for getting to where they want in life. So it is the relationship with the activity of mobility that they are concerned about, not the means or the instruments of mobility. And somebody will look at it and say, that's all very fine for you. You know, you are driving a nice car. I have to take the bus. But guess what? I didn't always have a nice car. I used to go on a bicycle for many years. All through medical school, I had a bicycle. So it is not the instrument that I was using to move, but that I was using it to move where I wanted to go, and I kept going. My focus was on where I wanted to go, not how I was getting there. So it is the relationship that matters. And when the abundance people, they look at, when you have the abundance mentality, what happens is suddenly life begins to offer them the things that they need. And they use it, they walk through life with an enormous lightness of being. They literally skip and dance through life without rather getting bogged down by the objects that they need to accumulate. And that is the essence. That is the real challenge all over the world. Because if you change from the not enough mentality to a relationship driven mentality, suddenly life opens its doors and offers all its treasures at your feet. And even when you're piled with treasure at your feet, you still will dance through it as if it's nothing. The really rich, wealthy king is the man who can walk away from all of it, who's not bogged down by his success or his wealth. So the biggest challenge that I see in this world that people need to master or need to acquire, or at least begin the process of learning how to be that way, is how do you walk through life as if life is a toy that you play with? See, the pandemic, the real people who did well in the pandemic are the people who are able to just play through the tragedy and the catastrophe of the pandemic, not get bogged down by it. But the other people, all the people who are caught in this object-oriented mentality, man, they were like rats in a trap, thrashing around. They were just like wild animals caught in a trap, fighting, thrashing, beating themselves to bits. All they had to do was just learn how to protect themselves, and they could have had the time of their life. Everyone who learned how to protect themselves, they actually made money. They actually did well. They actually thrived.
Okay, so you also are an author. So tell us about your writings, where we can get them, and what we can expect when we read them.
Actually, this thing that I just spoke about, the not enough life, I speak about it in this book that I wrote. It's called The Reaper's Dance, and you can find it on Amazon. Just you can either put on the search bar my name, Ravi Iyer, Ravi. Last name is Iyer, and you'll pull up this book. Or you can type in The Reaper's Dance, like the Grim Reaper, Thereaper, S Dance, The Reaper's Dance, 1,000 Days of COVID. That's the subtext of the subtitle of the book. And it's you have it on Kindle, it's on paperback, it's on hardcover, and an audio version of the book is going to be out by July 20th or so. In another week or so, your audiobook should be out on Amazon. And I speak about this. It's basically the Reaper's Dance is all about the experience of us at the Iyer Clinic in caring for people during the pandemic. The pandemic was eye opening in many ways. For 24 months, it was one intense period of isolation, and the entire world struggled because human beings are connected people. We thrive on connection. When we can't touch, when we can't hug, when we can't sit in close proximity to each other, when we can't assemble in crowds, it becomes stifling. We wither. And the pandemic, in one big stroke, put an end to that, because everything that was connected with human connection was dangerous, was lethal. A hug, a kiss, a peck on the cheek, um, sitting with you, somebody and just having a cup of coffee, having a close conversation, all of that was fraught with danger and was lethal. And we had no protection against it. So people who depended on their own self-identity based on this human connection, they didn't know what to do. It was as if somebody had pulled the rug from underneath their feet or chopped them off at the knees, and they struggled and they thrashed, and a lot of the chaos and the divisive rhetoric and the angry crowds was coming out of this enormous fear of what they were going to do. And it is unfortunate, but the leaders of every country, not just the US, all over the world, they exploited that fear for very, very political reasons. And that caused immense suffering and damage. So the book talks about how we in the Iyer Clinic were able to create a space, a sanctuary of free from that fear, where we could teach all our patients how to be safe, how to thrive and succeed, how to run their businesses, and be well during the pandemic. And yes, I did have some patients who died, especially some of them who are already very old or very sick with other diseases. They caught the virus, and it was too much for their body, and it just collapsed. But the total number of deaths that I had in my clinic was far less than what other people experienced. And that is mainly because of what we were able to do as a team. And the pandemic also refined our philosophy to how we would do things. And so all of that is in the book. So the book is not just about the story of the pandemic, it is about the story of how groups of people uh, became drew deep into their own ingenuity and their own resources and discovered inner strength that allowed them to literally look at death in the eye, and death blinked and retreated. So that's the story. It's a story of hope. It's a story of human suffering and strife and human triumph over overwhelming odds, not just in the US, but all over the world. And I describe it. I also describe why the pandemic happened. Um, I give clear evidence as to why I personally believe that this was a leak from a lab in Wuhan. And the interesting thing is now, this year, since February, uh, government agencies are slowly coming out with tidbits of information that confirm the lab leak theory that I wrote about. So it is going to be established that it was a leak. And I also explain why it happened. I also describe the science that led to the creation of the vaccines and how the vaccines really work and why they don't completely work as best as they should, but they still work to some extent. Yes.
Well, tell us about, I know you got your book coming out here. Tell us about any other upcoming projects that you're working on that people need to know about.
Um, right now, I'm still working on getting the word out about the Reaper's Dance, but I've started working on an outline of my next book called um, Squirrels in My Head. It's about neurodiversity, it's about ADHD and autism spectrum. I have ADHD. I never knew it. I grew up in a country at a time where nobody knew about ADHD. My parents didn't know it. They just thought that I was distracted and that I could not focus, that I was playful. So all my life, I struggled with this, that I have ADHD, and I did not even know that I had ADHD. So I used to think that there was something wrong with me, that I wasn't as good. And because I had this drive in me, I had to prove that I was better. And that kind of pushed me to accomplish all the things I did. But there was a part of me that was always felt like the kid in the candy store, but standing on the outside looking in at everyone else having a party, but wondering why I could not really participate. And I was 58 years old when a physician friend of mine told me, "Hey, Ravi, you have ADHD." I said, "No way. What do you mean, man?" And like, I have a phenomenal memory. I have almost a photographic memory, and I did all this. I'm an MD. I'm a PhD. I'm a top doctor. I got all these awards. Went to Harvard. All of that. He said, "Yeah, yeah, that's all very fine. You're a high functioning ADHD, and I'll prove it to you." I said, "Yeah, sure, go ahead." So he sat me down and he made me do this test. And at the end of the test, he scored the test in front of me and he said, "Look at this. You score off the charts. You have ADHD. You're very high functioning. You have certain qualities that actually protected you from the failures that a lot of ADHD people get trapped in. Most importantly was your ability, your photographic memory. You have a memory that you just need to see a passage once and you can recite it from memory. But you realize that that is not just that photographic memory actually puts you on the ADHD, very mildly autistic spectrum disorder. Um, And that's why you have that photographic memory, but you used it to excel in academics. Um, but you have ADHD, and I'm going to give you Adderall. And he gave me a prescription for Adderall. He put me on a very low dose, 10 milligrams. And I took it. And the next day, it was like, wow, this is what it means. And I went back to him and I said, and he said, how do you feel? Uh, he practices in the same building that I practice in. So he said, how do you feel? So I said, imagine that you were in a glass cage. And from birth, you have been moving around in this glass cage, looking out at the world around you. And with you in the glass cage are 10 million butterflies. And these butterflies are fluttering all around your face and around your head like a cloud. And you are looking at the world and trying to interact with the world through this cloud, the storm of butterflies. And you think that that's how it is for everyone. So you never really doubt it. You think that there's nothing wrong with you. That's all you ever knew from birth. And so you think that that's the way it is for everyone. And you just wonder that the other people must be better than you at handling the things in the world. That's why they do better than you. And that's why things are hard for you. And then along comes one day, one person who gives you this little blue pill, and you take the blue pill, and all the butterflies sit down on the ground, and you can see with clarity. That's how I feel. So I took the medicine for about a month. At the end of the month, I went to him and I said, you know what? I've already accomplished everything I want to accomplish in life. I don't need Adderall. Just the knowledge that I of my diagnosis is liberating enough. All these years, I did not know what I had. Just knowing that there's nothing messed up about me, there's nothing wrong with me, it is just who I am, is powerful enough, and I can just move on with this. And now I know when I'm distracted what to do. So that's it. So I never went back. I never took Adderall. But so the book that I'm working on is called Squirrels in My Head: Growing Up Neurodiverse in a Neurotypical World. So neurodiversity is this new word that is being coined. People don't consider ADHD, autism, bipolar, all these things as disorders anymore. They are actually different states of being. If you look at light, visible light, and you look at light and it is a spectrum, it is, you have the ultraviolet, then you have the violet, indigo, blue, green, yellow, orange, red, and then infrared, and so on and so forth. The whole neurodiversity and what is neurotypical is just a percentage game. It is just that the large majority of people their brains are wired in a particular way, which is what we consider as normal. And then you have these neurodiverse people whose brains are wired slightly differently. If you ever stop to think, you don't see the same world that a bumblebee sees. A honeybee sees the world in different colors than you do. A dog sees things differently, hears things differently. A friend of mine said, your dog can, he was teaching me how to train my dog, and I was yelling at the dog, sit, sit. And he said, your dog can hear a mosquito fart at 100 yards. Why are you screaming at him? And so that's what neurodiversity is. Neurodiversity are people who see the world through a different lens, different eyes. And as we go forward into the next century, we are in the beginning of the 22nd century. As we go forward into the century with artificial intelligence and so much technology, the world is going to become more and more knowledge based. the brute force of physical manufacturing is going to get replaced by mental power, by mind strength instead of muscle strength. And and in that world, you cannot go into that world with just neurotypical minds dictating how that world is navigated. You're going to need in your workforce, in the companies, you're going to need to create environments where neurodiverse people can not only work, but can thrive and feel validated and rewarded. Because you are going to be dependent on the different vision that they bring to the world around you. So that's what the second book is going to be about: squirrels in my mind, growing up neurodiverse in a neurotypical world. I've just started the outline. It's going to be a lot more work, but I have resources. I have friends at the Duke University Center for Autism, which is just a matter of 4 hours drive from my house. So on weekends, I'll probably go over there, meet with people, and so on. Write stories, collect stories of people, of neurodiverse people, neurotypical people, and compile them into a volume that can serve as a roadmap for people, for companies, and for leaders to craft the world of tomorrow.
Well, so we can all keep up with everything that you're up to. Throw out your contact information.
I'm in the process of making a website, but if you go on to there is a link tree, and it's spelled as linktr.ee/Dr. Iyer MD. So I'll spell it out: linktr.ee/D as in David, R as in Robert, I as in India, Y as in yellow, E, R as in Robert, MD. So if you put that into your Google search or into your web bar, Linktree/Dr. Iyer MD, you'll come directly to my Linktree page, and you will have links to my website, my Amazon author page, about my book, the current book, any future books, and so on. You'll have access to everything.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, so be sure to check Dr. Iyer out. He's definitely up to some amazing stuff, him and his team. Be sure to pick up his book and check out his future book. Please be sure to follow, rate, review, share this episode to as many people as possible. If you have any guests or suggestion topics, cjackson102@cox.net is the place to send them. As always, thank you for listening. And Dr. Iyer, thank you so much for joining us and sharing your expertise.
Thank you for having me. It was a pleasure talking to you.
For more information on the Living the Dream podcast, visit www.djcurveball.com. Until next time, stay focused on living the dream.